We'll go ahead and get started. I don't know if anybody just heard that, but we are recording this meeting for posterity, so be warned. So welcome everybody. Matt Watkins here. I'm filling in for Greg Lantos today. He's out. He did authorize me to tell you he had a hip replacement, it happened yesterday. I reached out to him this morning and he's doing fine, thankfully. So so there is that. So yeah, we have a nice agenda today. So you know, one action item, which is the tip amendment 1. So we'll go ahead and get started. So I want to do a roll call. So I'll read down my list here of people that I think are here. And if you just say something here, something like that, that would be good.
Matt, it might be easier if you stop screen sharing so you can see everybody.
Okay. Mason, can you go ahead? Thank you. All right. So let's see here. All right, I'm just gonna, okay. Thanks, Jay. I'll just go down my list here as it is on the screen. So, Jay is here. Mark Chamberlain from Lineborough, you're here, right?
Yes, I am.
All right. Tad Putney, Brookline.
Here.
Tim White, DES.
Yes, I'm here.
Brian Groth, Hudson.
Here.
Caleb Chang from NRPC.
Yep, here.
So this thing is kind of jumping all around. So you know what? I'm going to go back to my original plan here. So Amherst, Natasha Kuitfer.
Natasha Kitfer here.
Okay, thanks. All right, we already know Tad's here. Hollis, Joan Cudworth. Okay, not here. Hudson, Brian Groth is here. Litchfield, Troy Brown. No one here. Lineborough, Mark Chamberlain's here. Mason, the town of Mason. Nobody.
I'm here. Cassie Millen from NRPC, but also Mason. I'm here.
Oh, okay, Cassie. Thank you. Merrimack, Dawn Tumala.
She's,
Dawn, you're here, right?
She's here, but muted.
Okay, I know. I talked to her earlier, so I know she's here.
Sorry, yes. I'm here plus 4 or 5 interns.
Okay.
I don't know if they're all on yet or not.
Okay. Well, like we talked earlier, you'll send me their names and we can get them on the minutes list. Milford.
Okay.
Mount Vernon. From Nashua, I see Julie. Yeah, I know Peter's here. He just chatted that his microphone doesn't work. So Peter Kalmi is here. I see Dan Hudson.
Hi.
All right, that's all I see from
Matt. We also have the new transit administrator joining the call today, Camille Correa. Welcome.
Yep.
Good afternoon. Glad to be here. Thank you.
Well, yeah, I was going to get to you. You're farther down the list, Camille. You're the new Camille at NTS, and would you like to say a few words?
Oh, absolutely. Hello, good afternoon. My name is Camille Correa, new transit administrator for Nashua. Glad to be here. Love public transit. Look forward to seeing everybody on board the bus who is in this area and to take advantage of all the places along the route. Look forward to exploring, and if anybody ever has any recommendations as to what to do and where to go, I'm very open to it. Thank you, and I look forward to working with everyone.
Thanks, Camille. We wish you luck. Pelham. I think Jennifer is here.
Yeah, I'm here.
All right, thanks, Jen. Wilton, I see Peter Hout.
Here.
All right. DOT, I see Linda Dusenberry.
Yes, here.
And Kimberly Rumo.
Yes, I am here.
And Kimberly, you're a new person at DOT. Would you like to just say hello to everybody? And
I'm actually not new at DOT. I've been there for a few years, but I am new in the position working with Linda. I'm
Okay,
looking forward to working with everybody.
great, thank you, Kimberly.
Thank you.
New Hampshire DES, I see Tim White.
Yep.
Hi, Tim. Federal Highways, Lee Levine.
Yes, I am here. Good afternoon.
Thanks, Lee. FTA. All right, and at NRPC, I see Greg, Derek Stahl, Mason Twombly, Caleb, and Cassie. All right, so.
Derek too.
You missed me.
Oh, all right. That's Wayne Husband? Is that? Okay, thanks, Wayne.
Oh, Matt and John Savage as well.
Oh, hello, John. I do see you there. Thank you.
And you've got Mike Dugas from DOT.
And hello, Mike.
Hello, Matt. Good afternoon.
Thanks for joining us. Really appreciate it. We'll hear more from you in a few minutes. All right, thank you. So first, you know what I didn't do? I want to read the disclaimer. Due to the state of emergency declared by the governor as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic and in accordance with the governor's emergency order number 12, pursuant to executive order 2020-04, the NRPC and committees are authorized to meet electronically. Please note there is no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to this meeting. The NRPC is utilizing Zoom for this electronic meeting. And of course, the link was provided, the call-in number, the meeting ID, and the passcode. So I think we're covered on that. So directing your attention to your agenda packet, the next agenda item is the minutes from April 14th, 2021. The attachment is there. Does anybody have any comments, questions, or input? So hearing none, I'm going to look for a motion to approve the May meeting minutes.
So moved.
So that's Julie. I don't
Second,
think-
Natasha.
Okay, Natasha. All right, and I do need to do a formal roll call of this. So again, starting with Amherst, Natasha.
Yes, thank you.
So this vote is to accept the minutes. Tad.
I'll abstain, Matt.
Okay, you're abstaining. Thanks, Tad. Brian from Hudson.
I have to abstain too since I wasn't there.
Okay. Limeboro, Mark Chamberlain. Hey, Mark. All right, we'll move on. Merrimack, Dawn.
Yes.
Thank you. Nashua.
Yes, it's Julie.
Okay, Julie's a yes. Pelham, Jennifer.
Yes.
Wilton, Peter Howard.
Yes.
NTS, I guess Camille.
I'll have to abstain. I was not at the meeting.
Yep.
Thank
you. DOT, Linda.
Yes.
Okay. DES, Tim.
Yes.
Federal Highways, Lee.
I'm non-voting.
Ah, okay. Thank you for that reminder. I knew that. All right, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think we're good on adopting those
Mark
minutes.
Chamberlain's a yes also. He just put it into the chat.
Oh, thank you. That's helpful. All right, so I think we're good on the minutes, right? Okay. So moving on, agenda item 3 is the fiscal year 2021 to 2024 Transportation Improvement Program Amendment 1. I would also direct your attention to the your agenda packet. That's attachment 2. So I'm going to read through this. The Nashua Regional Planning Commission has received proposed amendment number 1 to the adopted Nashua Metropolitan Area 2021-2024 Transportation Improvement Program from the New Hampshire Department of Transportation. The NRPC is expected to amend the TIP to account for changes to projects within the Nashua region and to maintain consistency with statewide TIP or STIP. The NRPC would also amend the 2021 to 2045 Metropolitan Transportation Plan, project list, and fiscal constraint analysis to maintain consistency with the amended TIP project list. A public comment period is being held from June 4th through June 15th, and a virtual public hearing will be held on Wednesday, June 16th, 2021 at 7 p.m. by Zoom. There's an online access link, a phone link, and etc. So the analysis and recommendation is that the most significant project change is a delay of 2 years in construction of the FE Turnpike widening to Merrimack. That's project 13761C. NRPC has conferred with New Hampshire DOT regarding the impact of loss of toll revenue system-wide on the Turnpike system due to COVID-induced traffic reductions over the past year. We concur with the need to delay this project and understand that other Turnpike projects are being affected in a similar manner. The change to the Bedford Toll Plaza, that's project 1600 means that removing open road tolling as a possible alternative eliminates cash collection of tolls as an alternative to electric toll collection. Basically, in the original scope, it said allow for open road tolling and all electronic tolling, but open road tolling is being taken out of that. They don't mean the same thing, but what we have here is that for further explanation, this may present some minor inconvenience to motorists without electronic transponders who will then receive notice of tolls due through the mail at an additional cost. However, it will provide a significantly more cost-effective means of toll collection and will encourage motorists to utilize transponders rather than post-paying tolls. This project is also being delayed from fiscal year 2021 to 2023-24 as a result of the all electronic tolling design cost. The next change is to NTS funding. This is NTS 5310 and 5339. That resulted from split negotiations between Nashua Transit System and other transit operators sharing formula funds for the Nashua urbanized area. And so this is, a desired outcome of the process, so pretty non-controversial. There are also changes to the statewide programs. They're administrative in nature and reflect changes needed to fund child projects, which are developed from these programs. So top of the next page, the proposed changes made by amendment number 1 to the NRPC TIP and MTP update meet all applicable conformity requirements under the conformity rule. The attached TIP amendment details these requirements, and the adopted fiscal year 2021-2024 TIP identifies NRPC actions to meet these requirements. So Action is required from the TTAC to recommend approval of the proposed TIP amendment by the NRPC MPO at its June 16th meeting. NRPC staff has reviewed this amendment in consultation with New Hampshire DOT, New Hampshire DES, United States EPA, Federal Highway Administration, Federal Transit Administration, and representatives of the New Hampshire MPOs. And all of these, through all of that, the recommendation is to approve these amendment changes. So, I would be looking for a motion that the NRPC, well, I don't want to make the motion, but what it would be is the NRPC TTAC recommends that TIP amendment number 1 of the federal fiscal year 2021 to 2024 STIP be adopted by the NRPC MPO Policy Committee. So does anybody want any further clarification of these changes? Because you can see what follows is a summary of the proposed changes, probably a little more detail if you want it. But so, so I'm looking for a motion.
Matt,
So
I just
moved.
wanted to say, on your page 6 and 7, it shows Bedford Merrimack 16100 correctly, because it's going to all electronic tolling.
Okay.
But on your page 9 of the handout, it's showing the old scope. I
Okay.
just wanted to note that. And
Okay.
also, in the summary of 16100, it says, receive notice of tolls due through the mail at an additional cost. There isn't an additional cost unless it's after 7 days. So I called Turnpike on this because I was curious myself. But what happens is if somebody goes through the toll, the first 7 days, they can call up and pay it the regular price. But after those 7 days, they will be sent a invoice and then it will go up. I think it's $1
Okay.
to invoice it. But if you didn't want an additional charge, you'd have to do it in the first 7 days, just to clarify.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. We'll get that in there. Thank you.
Matt, I would move the motion that you stated. This is John from NTS.
Okay. Thanks, John. So I need a second on that.
Peter Howard of Wilton will second.
Thank you, Peter. All right, so I need to do a roll call on this. So we'll start from the top. Amherst, Natasha.
Natasha, yes.
Thank you. Brookline, Tad.
Yes.
Thank you. Hudson, Brian.
Yep.
Thank you. Lineborough, Mark.
Yes.
Merrimack, Dawn.
Yes.
Nashua.
This is Julie. I say yes.
Thank you, Julie. Pelham, Jennifer.
Yes.
Wilton, Peter.
Yes.
NTS, John.
It's my motion, so yes.
Yeah, well, yeah, still being official. DOT?
I abstain.
Okay, thank you. DES?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, it looks like that TIP Amendment 1 passes. That's great. Thank you for that. So moving on, next agenda item is the New Hampshire 13 South Main Street Brookline Road Safety Audit. Mike Dugas from DOT is here. He's going to present the findings of the RSA. And I'm gonna let Mike, you know, kind of introduce the concept and himself and talk about this. So, Mike, are you all set to go for this?
I am, yes, thank you, Matt.
All right,
And are you seeing my screen now?
you're good.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Matt. Thank you to everybody in the audience. I am Mike Dugas, and I'm the Highway Safety Engineer for the DOT. And I'll be providing a briefing on a recent road safety audit that was conducted in Brookline. But I will introduce that with a quick discussion of the road safety audit process to explain what an audit is, define the process that we follow, and then I'll get into the details of what we discovered at the Brookline site. And I think, as Matt might have mentioned, it might simply be in the agenda, but the site that we're talking about in Brookline is the intersection of Route 13 and South Main Street, and there's a 10-year plan project for that site in 2029, I believe it is, Matt, for the present value cost of $400,000 for construction. So I'll talk about that a little bit later. So to begin, what is a road safety audit? I won't read this verbatim, but the formal definition from the Federal Highway Administration, paraphrasing, it's essentially a formal safety evaluation of a site that's conducted by a multidisciplinary team. And what's unique about this process is that it's not done simply by engineers. The process relies on the close involvement of non-engineers. So typically we work with the community that has requested the audit, and we involve individuals such as local administration, local emergency services folks, perhaps even interested abutting landowners to participate closely in the process, because without their expertise, without their observations and their viewpoints that are very different from what the engineers bring to the table, we'd really have only a partial solution. So that's how we rely on non-engineers to have a complete and comprehensive understanding of the problems and then consideration of the possible ways to address the problems. So the DOT's application process, our application for road safety audits, is on our website, and I can provide that link to Matt to share. But essentially, the application is very simple. It requires a submission of crash reports documenting the crash history of a particular site. Crash diagrams are very helpful to try to clearly present the information that's in those crash reports. And then also we request traffic data so we understand what kind of traffic volumes we're dealing with at a site. And then finally, the application calls for signatures from both the DOT engineer for the region that we're in, the regional planning official, and then also a municipal official, simply to acknowledge that these different bodies, these entities, do support the conduct of a study at this location. Historically, we have had one annual submission period with a December 1st deadline. This year, we introduced a mid-year submission date of June 1st, trying to make the process more responsive to communities and try to spur more communities to apply for the process, perhaps resulting in more safety projects for our Highway Safety Improvement Program. So the basic requirements.
Like, your audio is very faint. I wonder if it's possible to just speak a little bit louder.
I can do that, yes.
Mic.
Thank you. So the basic requirements we look for in road safety audit applicants are the following. So first of all, the sites that we accept must have either a fatal or a serious injury crash in the most recent 10-year period. And that's required for a couple of different reasons. First of all, that's the fundamental purpose of our Highway Safety Improvement Program, which is to reduce fatalities and serious injuries on our highways. The second and more practical consideration is that in the sites that we evaluate, we want to ensure that they are of significant enough safety concern that we can justify making safety investments as a follow-up step to the road safety audit. if we have sites that don't have a very substantial crash history, it's difficult to justify those investments. Secondly, we ask the applicant to make sure that the crashes that they're submitting in support of the application are related to and located at the location of interest. It's very often that a community will quickly gather crash records with the presumption that they do apply to the site, but upon closer reading, the crashes did not occur at the site or be related to the site. And then thirdly, the crashes that are presented for the site, they should be correctable and should show a pattern indicative of a safety problem rather than a single isolated incident. So with those conditions met, the applicants are gathered, I guess you could say the applicants that meet the basic requirements are evaluated by my HSIP committee. And then the ones that are accepted, we accept up to 3 or 4 per application period, which is about what our resources can handle. For the successful applicants, I would work with the applying community to put together an audit team. And again, that's comprised of DOT staff, Federal Highway Administration usually participates, and then participants at the desire and direction of the town. So again, this is customarily administration representation, emergency responders, and then perhaps also abutters. The audit itself typically lasts about a half a day. We'll have an introductory meeting in the morning, followed by an on-site field review so that the participants in the audit can have conversations as to what they're seeing in the field at that time. And then finally, we would return and have a recap meeting so everybody can share their observations and then begin the discussion of what types of infrastructure improvements might help the situations that were observed. And a really important element of the road safety audit process is that the goal is to be able to reach consensus among the DOT and non-DOT folks on the possible range of short, intermediate, and long-term improvements that would be reasonable to pursue. And then finally, the last step where this process reaches its fruition is an implementation. Some of the key considerations are when we develop alternatives, one of the steps that we do as part of the audit, we compute a benefit cost ratio for usually the more expensive capital improvement alternatives. And with that benefit cost ratio, what we're looking for is a number of 2 or greater. And so when I talk about benefit, it means the economic value of the crashes that we expect to be prevented by a particular treatment. And as an example, I would say that if an alternative is a roundabout, let's say, roundabout could be expected to reduce the likelihood of all types of crashes, all severities, by 72%. And so using numbers provided by Federal Highway, we're able to then calculate the value of all the crashes that roundabout would prevent from happening in the future. And then the cost of the cost part of the equation is simply the estimated cost to construct the improvements. So we shoot for a value benefit cost of 2.0 or greater, only in the understanding that it's common in most projects that as the project evolves, the cost goes up, but the benefit doesn't go up. So we want to ensure that once the project reaches its conclusion, that we're still maintaining at least a benefit cost ratio of 1.0 as an absolute minimum. And I do state that costly alternatives, and I don't have a particular threshold in mind, but very costly alternatives may need to pursue funding in the 10-year plan. We tried to keep projects that are within our highway safety improvement program modest, but that modest figure is not firm. And we have funded projects up to $2 million within that program. So just keep that in mind as we talk about different alternatives. And I think it's worth noting as well as these audits, as they generate a menu of short, intermediate, and long-term options, many of these options are very low cost and they're easily done by a community within their own highway maintenance programs and on their own schedule. Very often, it's really not worth their while to try to pursue federal funding for such simple improvements, such as could be signs, could be markings, it could be as simple as clearing vegetation on a roadside, things of that nature. So very often, these elements can be implemented very quickly. If there are no questions on the road safety audit process, I can answer questions now, or you can save them for later. If not, I'll proceed into a discussion of the site in Brookline. So the map here shows the location that was studied. Again, this is the intersection of State Route 13 and South Main Street, which is on the south end of Brookline. You can see its relationship to both the downtown or the village center of Brookline at the top of the map and the Mass State line at the bottom of the map. So we're about 3/4 of a mile or so north of the Mass State line. And then on the right is a more close-up image of the intersection. So to summarize some of the existing conditions at the site that we evaluated, you can see that first of all, important consideration is the speed limit through the site is 50 today. The town has been interested in getting that lowered for some time now. The DOT did a formal speed study several years ago, and at the conclusion of our study, we recommended keeping the speed limit as it was. And that was really based on consideration of the current traveling speed of traffic, but also the context of the highway being mostly a rural highway with not that many driveways. Although it's certainly true that there is growing development pressure at the intersection and nearby that may lead us to reconsider that. Second consideration, second item of information here shown is the average daily traffic along Route 13 is just under 10,000 vehicles per day. And on South Main Street is about 3,300 vehicles per day. And that's an average annual figure. So it fluctuates seasonally, sometimes higher, sometimes lower. But South Main Street is a very popular connection linking traffic, probably originating from northern Massachusetts over towards the Nashua region. So looking at the physical layout of the intersection today, certainly the skew, the sharp angle at which South Main Street intersects Route 13 leads to problems. One of the most obvious problems is that the northbound right turns, because that's such a shallow turn the vehicle makes, they can be made at a very high rate of speed. Another factor that contributes to issues at the intersection, we have commercial driveways on the west side of Route 13, which are misaligned with the South Main Street intersection. That causes some confusion within the intersection. And then finally, the crash history that was presented by the town in support of this site for a road safety audit showed a history of 52 crashes over a recent 10-year period. 13 of those resulted in injuries, and 2 of those injuries were considered serious. And as it turned out, both of those serious injury crashes involved motorcycles. So the finding of the road safety audit team in our discussions in the field was we identified really 3 principal safety concerns at this intersection. The first one being the high speeds, the high speed of through traffic along Route 13, and then the hazard that presents to turning traffic. A second safety concern was that sharp angle at which South Main Street intersects Route 13 and those fast northbound right turns that are possible. I should mention also that with the sharp angle of South Main Street coming into Route 13, it also makes the turning movements out of South Main Street somewhat awkward at times. It makes sight lines more difficult than they would be at a intersection aligned at more of a right angle. And then thirdly, as I already stated, the driveways, the commercial driveways across the road from the intersection do create confusion and hazards of their own with turning traffic in and out of those driveways. So again, the objective of the audit is usually to develop a menu of improvement alternatives, ranging from low-cost fixes that can be implemented quickly, to intermediate term options that might need some modest level of funding and planning, to long-term capital improvements that implement some of the more comprehensive treatments. So this first concept presents some of the lower cost elements. And I should mention that these elements, they're pretty much independent and could be combined in different combinations. So this concept that's drawn here combines several different treatments. The first is shown in this crosshatching in the southeastern corner of the intersection. It shows the potential removal of some existing pavement, the intention being to make the northbound right turn movement follow a tighter radius, thereby slowing down the speed of that movement. A second element of this concept that's shown is the potential to add a median traffic island on South Main Street, separating exiting from entering traffic. Another possible benefit of having a median island there would be the ability to add a flanking stop sign. So I have a stop sign on both the right-hand side. My mouse is fighting me. A stop sign both on the right-hand side and the left-hand side of the traffic that's coming out of South Main Street. And then a third element of this plan, this concept one, is the possible addition of a northbound right turn lane to separate that traffic from the northbound through travel lane. So as I said, these are the lower cost improvement options, and because they are lower cost, they're not a comprehensive solution. They might touch on one or more of the safety concerns, but they don't address all of them. Some of the drawbacks of the elements that are shown in this concept here are, first of all, this option doesn't control the speeds north and southbound along 13. Secondly, and I think this relates to probably DOT more than anybody else, having a new traffic island within the intersection, as we've shown here, would also prevent a hazard and an obstruction to snowplowing. So that's a practical consideration whenever we're proposing a new traffic island. And then thirdly, in a condition that we see in many other locations, this new northbound right turn lane could at times block the sight line for vehicles and drivers looking to their left from South Main Street. And so that's something that certainly would need to be considered. So in general, what I've tried to capture in concept one are elements or improvement options that would pertain to slightly modifying the intersection in its existing location. As we look at concept two, the main difference with this concept is that it would shift South Main Street so that it's now aligned with the northerly commercial driveway. So trying to achieve some reduction in the confusion that the offset nature of those access points causes today. So again, some of the elements that are combined in this concept, and some of them are similar from what was shown in concept one. So this would include, as I said, a realignment of South Main Street, so slightly north of where it is today. Be reconfiguring somewhat the access to the commercial site. Today, the northerly driveway is entrance only, and the southerly driveway is exit only. So with this realignment of South Main Street, we would suggest that this northerly driveway could be full access in and out traffic. And then the southerly access would be exit only to the right. And to the right, simply because it's so close to the intersection that it would operate more safely as a right turn out only. And to enforce that operation, this concept shows narrowing the driveway from its current, I think it's 50 feet wide, down to a more appropriate width for that right turn operation. This concept also carries from concept one the removal of some existing pavement to, again, try to slow down the speeds of the northbound right turns. It would also add the northbound right turn lane, as well as left turn lanes on Route 13. This concept shows only a northbound left turn lane, but it'd be reasonable at the same time to provide a southbound left turn lane. The southbound left turning volume is likely very low, but it makes sense to have a refuge for those few vehicles that are making that movement. So some of the drawbacks that pertain to this alternative or this combination of improvement elements, like concept one, it wouldn't control the speed of through traffic. And which is it wasn't an element of concept one, but it certainly does raise its head in concept two, is an option like this would certainly lead to unavoidable property impacts. And so that would affect the cost of this option and the time needed to execute it. And finally, on concept three, now we're talking about longer term options, more costly and more comprehensive fixes to the safety issues. And so in this case, we've developed a concept for a roundabout. Some of the things to keep in mind with this alternative, the size of the roundabout is a reflection of what we customarily would arrive at when we're building a roundabout on a state highway that needs to accommodate all legal vehicles. And so the diameter of this design is typically in the range of 130 to 135 feet. And the great benefit of a roundabout in this location and anywhere really is that it controls the speeds of all vehicles passing through the intersection. So it truly is a comprehensive safety treatment. And one thing that's not shown but could be in a design here, in a roundabout design, is a combination of pedestrians. It's very common when there's pedestrian activity and sidewalks in the area to provide crosswalks on the approaches and departures from the roundabout. So some of the drawbacks or realities, I guess you could say, of a roundabout option is, first of all, it's a much higher cost treatment than what was shown in option one and option two. And it would certainly lead to property impacts. I think that would be unavoidable. And then what's particular to this roundabout concept as it's currently shown is that because of the sharp angle that we've already talked about as South Main Street approaches Route 13, there's a very acute angle on that right turn movement from South Main to northbound on Route 13, which would not be amenable to direct turns by trucking. So there are two ways to treat that. Either trucks can make that right turn indirectly through the use of the roundabout for that U-turn movement, or there could be widening done either to have a slip lane or a truck apron within this quadrant of the roundabout. And I think it's worth mentioning that this concept is meant to show the anticipated size of the roundabout, but certainly this roundabout could be repositioned either north or south to make it work better, both with respect to how South Main Street matches into it, but also how it provides access either into the commercial site, State Line Plaza, which is right here, or even the commercial site to the north. So there is certainly latitude to adjust the position of the roundabout within this concept. And then finally, the next steps that will follow within this roundabout, this road safety audit process. For this specific site, the final review comments from the participating team are being incorporated, and the final report will be issued this month. So that report will go out to all the participants in the roundabout. The next step after that will be for me and the DOT to screen those alternatives to try to suggest what we think is the most appropriate course of action. So which options are the most realistic, which ones would be the most beneficial. I would then review those alternatives with my Highway Safety Improvement Program Committee within the DOT. And to give you a little bit of insight into that committee, it's a dozen individuals, half are DOT from different areas of expertise, different disciplines. Then half of the committee membership is regional planners, federal highway, and then two representatives from municipal bodies, so cities and towns. After the HSIP committee, I'll bring those same alternatives to the DOT leadership to get the DOT's agency buy-in on that, and then finally take that to the town for their buy-in as well. And again, ultimately with this process, we're looking to get consensus among all these different bodies as to the right course of action that will then lead to implementation. And finally, I think it's worth mentioning as well that even though this road safety audit is recommending a roundabout as one of the alternatives, if we do proceed with a capital improvement project of that nature, it would need to follow, because of federal environmental rules, it would need to follow the traditional project development process, which would then have to revisit the range of alternatives, get public input on all of those, a formal evaluation of the impacts of those different options on environmental resources, natural and cultural, and then proceed in that direction. So I guess what I'm saying is that we wouldn't be able to simply presume that a roundabout is the selected alternative and charge with the implementation of that option. So with that, I presented a lot of information, but I'm certainly happy to take any questions that you might have.
Mike, this is Mark from Limeboro. My question was, have you looked at option 2 with a signal?
That's a good question, Mark. I'll have to go back into the notes from the audit. I don't think a signal was favored within the audit team, but certainly, Tad, if you remember differently, please correct my memory.
I think in the draft report, Mike, the thought of a light signal was considered, but the traffic volume wasn't sufficient enough at this time to make it a recommended alternative, as I recall.
Right, right. So Mark, and for the purpose of this audit, even if a roundabout isn't presented as one of the concepts, if this does proceed to a capital improvement project, that will have to be considered. We'd have to put that up beside a roundabout option. In this case, consider the costs, the benefits, the impacts, the full slate of project evaluation.
Understood. Thank you.
You're welcome. Matt, you are muted.
Not anymore.
Caught you.
Yeah, you did. You caught me. So any other questions for Mike or for Tad for that matter, who it's his community down there and they've been involved obviously with this. So all right, well, that's great. Mike, I know that we had some interest from some of our communities recently about some additional RSAs. So we'll see what transpires. And is my understanding correct that the application period is kind of ongoing, and December 1st is a deadline of some sort?
Yes, so December 1st is the next deadline. But we are considering, if we don't receive an overwhelming volume of audit applications, we're considering being able to evaluate them as they come in. So we don't need to wait those 6 months to take the next step in the process. Yeah. The process that we have now was developed some years ago, when at that time we had received a lot of applicants. And so we had to bring some definition to that process.
All right, any other thoughts or comments? All right, thank you so much, Mike.
You're very
really
welcome.
good. It was a great process.
Okay, thank you, and have a good day.
You're welcome, thank you. All right, so the next agenda item, our final agenda item is me. So first of all, I'm hoping you can see the presentation and not the presentation notes. So
You're good.
I'm good. Thank you, Julie. Yeah, you don't want to see my notes. It's like, never mind. So I am going to be talking about we are in the process of updating our regional bike ped plan, and I have a few slides here just to give you a progress report about where we're at, and then talking about the remaining timeline. We're looking to wrap up a draft of this plan by the end of June. A priority of NRPC is to encourage a shift from motorized to human-powered travel. The idea is to substitute biking and walking, other forms of transportation, for driving an automobile for, personal errands or visiting friends or social activities or the commute to work whenever possible. So, and we know that research has shown that where investment in pedestrian and bike facilities has occurred, rates of non-motorized travel are significantly higher than the national average. So therefore, it's reasonable to assume that some percentage of these personal trips that are now currently being conducted by a motor vehicle could be shifted to non-motorized modes if proper facilities and encouragement were provided. So, that's what this plan is about, really. And this is the kind of the chapters or the sections of the plan as it stands now. And I just want to touch on each section kind of briefly to give you a flavor of what we're doing. So this kind of introductory chapters describes the plan purpose, the benefits of a walkable and bikeable region. Talks a little bit about the federal highway, kind of the 5 E's that they talk about, and just what the overall vision is here. So the intent of the plan is to provide guidance for planning, development, implementation for safe and usable facilities. So the focus areas are to kind of identify and in the long term provide a framework for a bike ped network, to engineer systematic safety into roadway design, and to provide policymakers and community advocates with the tools for improving the biking and walking environment. We know there are benefits, the risk of death or serious injury to a pedestrian or cyclist as a result of a collision with a motor vehicle. It increases rapidly with motor vehicle speed. So if we can, make improve the biking, walking environment, then there are obviously safety benefits to us and our neighbors. There are economic benefits. We know that more people, regardless of the generation they've been born into, they're looking to live and work in areas that support, biking and walking and outdoor recreation opportunities and commuting by bike or by foot. So this creates an economic development opportunity for the national region. There are transportation efficiency, health and fitness, environmental benefits, also social equity benefits because bicycles offer increased mobility, to those segments of the population with low rates of car ownership, such as low income earners, unemployed people, seniors, people under 18 years of age. So all sorts of benefits. Federal Highway Administration is invested in bike planning, and they suggest this process for increasing biking and walking, it should be multidisciplinary. It should, address, it should focus on equity and diversity and inclusion. Engineering safety into the road design creates, safe places to ride and walk. Education helps, provides the skills and confidence for people to bike and walk. And creating a strong biking and walking culture is a function of encouragement. And then through evaluation, we can measure progress on whatever metrics or recommendations we come up with. So this plan, looks to incorporate all of these concepts. And we do have a vision statement. And what that says is the Greater Nashua Region Bicycle and Pedestrian Plan will promote safe access to the region's transportation system for all users and will encourage active self-powered transportation through a safe, convenient, and comfortable on and off road system while increasing connectivity, mobility, equity, health, environmental quality, and economic vitality. So that's kind of what this plan is about. And so moving on to the next section, kind of chapter 2, where we talk about existing conditions and trends. So walking and biking conditions are improving in the region. There are lots of good examples and success stories, and these projects do provide a strong foundation for the extent, kind of the creation and expansion of a non-motorized network. Many of our 13 communities in the region do have, well-developed sidewalk networks, and there are several separated bicycle paths that provide good opportunities to walk and bike in areas where people feel safe. So what we did is we put together a map of kind of existing bike lanes, sidewalks, and trails. So this obviously is a map of the region. Kind of faded in the background is our road network. Overlaid on that are the bike lanes and the sidewalks and the paths that we know about. I wanted to say that our definition of a bike lane is that if it's painted and it's or has a sign that says bike lane, that qualifies it for a bike lane. If it's just shoulders that are wide enough to bike on, we're not, for the purposes of this map, we're not counting those. So you can see that official bike lanes, the ones we know about, are fairly limited to the city of Nashua. Again, you see that we do have a pretty good network of sidewalks in lots of our communities. And also there are lots of off-road trails in our, the recreation areas and the parks and so forth throughout the region. So what we also did here is we wanted to highlight, some of these projects. So each of those circles with the letters it signifies different projects that we thought we'd highlight. They will be, in the plan, but I have a couple of examples here. For example, the Wilton Riverwalk in downtown Wilton. That's a project that began in 2017, and phase 1 opened then, and that was a walkway along the Stony Brook River, kind of near the police station parking lot. And then since then, there's been planning and meetings and so on, and the town has really been moving forward, looking for funding to build out this whole this river walk. They recently applied for funding for a pedestrian bridge across Stony Brook, and it is ending up in the 10-year plan. So that's a good thing, good effort going on there. I'm kind of cheating on this. This is a project that actually hasn't been built, but as my understanding, it's that they're about to break ground like any day type of thing. Maybe it's the end of the month, beginning of the fiscal year, but this is the Amherst Street side path. This is going to be an 8-foot wide, multi-use path that's completely separated from Amherst Street, and it will be along Amherst Street between the Amherst Village and the Milford Oval. So that's a concept. So again, cheating, it's not actually built, but it is about to be. Another project that exists and is going to be expanded is the Heritage Rail Trail. Well, the western section has existed since 1999, and that's a picture of it. Just a great separated use trail. And the city has been working hard to, gather together the funding over the years to extend it to the east of Main Street. And as I understand it, that will be built next spring. And that's going to extend, yeah. So that will extend the trail from Main Street in Nashua, right across from City Hall there, pretty much to the Merrimack River and the Crown Street parking lot, which is the site of potentially a commuter rail station. This is a real highlight kind of the region. It's the Albuquerque Avenue side path. It's oriented now north-south through the center of Litchfield. It's 70% of Litchfield's residents are 5 to 10 minute walk from this facility. It connects a couple of schools, parks, and so on. And Litchfield is looking to expand its network out from there. So those are just some of the, some good highlights of how we're making progress. Despite this gradual improvement in bike ped infrastructure, the general perception with a lot of people is that it's not safe to ride a bike or on anything but neighborhood streets, the occasional separated use path or the occasional bike lane. So bicycle level of stress is a planning tool that we're using. It's used in combination with factors such as public input and crash data to identify gaps and needed improvements. And LTS, it rates a road segment or crossing based on traffic stress that it imposes on cyclists. By looking at roadway attributes such as shoulder width and traffic speeds and other attributes, this tool identifies the areas where cyclists are likely to feel more or less safe in relation to vehicle traffic. So the goal is to make the network more accessible to more people by lowering this level of traffic stress. So on that legend, you can see that there are 4 levels. LTS1 is basically no stress. That's good, suitable for all cyclists, including children. Envision like a cul-de-sac or a quiet neighborhood street. LTS2 is more traffic stress, requires more attention, especially for children. This is for the majority of the population who are they're wary, but they're willing. The normal person that would bike if it was more safe, that's LTS2, and that's the level that we would suggest that this regional bike network should strive to meet. And then LTS3 and 4 are just for much more confident people. So what this map shows is we went ahead and calculated LTS for the whole region. It was part of a statewide project and other more local planning projects. And it's a pretty good tool. I don't know how much detail you can see here. We'll make this a bigger map in the final document, but if you could see, you can see Route 101A. It generally is a 3 or a 4, which makes some sense. That's not a very bikeable, really, corridor. I think in a couple places along here, this tool shows a level of traffic stress 2 on 101A. That might be questionable, but we will improve this as we go along. But it's it's a good it's kind of a good indicator of where we are kind of at currently with bikeability in the region. So so moving on. Yeah, so one of the ways we can use this is we went ahead and this is a summary of the percentage of road miles for each LTS category for each of our 13 communities. So again, if we were to get in the weeds here, we probably would be going back and forth on some of these rankings, but that's good. It's a good planning tool. So again, in this chapter on existing conditions and trends, we did want to put a couple of trends in there. This shows bike ped fatalities in the United States by year. For that period between 2009 and 18, you can see that these fatality rates are increasing. In fact, 2018 was the deadliest year since 1990 for these types of fatalities. My understanding is that it's being blamed on distracted drivers and larger vehicles. Another trend here, the COVID-19 pandemic impacted bike and ped travel in the Nashua region. obviously, and elsewhere. And these graphs use Strava data. It's for Hillsborough County, and give an idea to what extent COVID did impact, biking and walking and so on in the region. So the image on the left is just represents bike trips. That top blue line is for 2020, and you can see that it's significantly higher for the number of trips in 2017, 18, and 19. You can also see the right-hand graph shows is a summary of biking, running, and hiking, I should say, and you can see the same relationship. So, again, while the full impact of COVID on biking and walking really isn't known, we know it increased. We know it increased biking and walking. We do also know that that vehicle miles traveled was down in 2020, and walking and biking rates were up. And so, probably motor vehicle miles driven will rebound. We don't know to what level. It's also unclear what impact, to what extent that will impact these non-motorized modes. So in any event, those are just a few of the trends we thought we would put in the existing conditions section. So moving on to designing for safety. This is about vehicle speed versus severity of injury. It's about incorporating systematic safety into roadway design, and it's about trying to come up with some design guidelines that are useful. So the relationship between motor vehicles and motor vehicle speed and severity of crashes with vulnerable users is a key thing. For crashes, again, between motor vehicles and vulnerable users, there's data that show this similar pattern, that the risk of fatality to that vulnerable user increases, slowly at first, and then rapidly as when you go up above 30 miles per hour. So, this graphic shows that. So for a vulnerable user that gets struck by a car going 20 miles per hour, there's a 95% chance that that person that walker or that biker is going to survive. When that the speed of that vehicle goes up to 30, there's a 45% chance or probability that that pedestrian is going to be fatally injured. And then between 30 and 40, the probability of being fatally injured increases to 85%. So that's an important concept to keep in mind, and really important. So this graphic uses information about that relationship and attempts to assign a design category for our different the conditions that are out there. So these low speed, low volume roads, design level 1 roads there in that third column from the left, that's where motor vehicles and multimodal users can safely mix, so long as that design level of the road is still, down there, like kind of lower in this area, that might be a cul-de-sac, low speed, low to motor, low volume with traffic, really safe. You don't need to do anything. You can start getting up towards 30 miles per hour. You probably need to start doing, being more aware of what could be done from a design perspective. Those medium speed, higher volume roads between 30 and like 50 miles per hour. That's where vulnerable users and motor vehicles really shouldn't be mixing, except at intersections. And then that higher level above 50 miles per hour, that's, certain death, just, you don't want to put, in my opinion, a biker on Route 111. You really need to, Route 101, I should say. You just need to completely separate people out there. So at any rate, each of these roadway categories has unique needs, requires appropriate designs. and to maximize safety. So these categories are arranged in this table to kind of illustrate their corresponding recommended designs and the rationale that informs that selection. So again, design level 1, less, up to 30 miles an hour, less than 10,000 vehicles per day. The method of protecting vulnerable users is just either do nothing or perhaps traffic calming, again, low speed, low volume. It is okay to mix bikes, peds, and vehicles in this case. And again, at lower speeds, nothing needs to be done. As the speeds increase and reach up towards 30, I'll show this in a minute, but things like enhanced shoulders or rumble strips can protect people on the shoulder. And level 2, again, 30 to 50 miles per hour, high motor vehicle volume. In this case, no mixing of pedestrians and motor vehicles except at crossings, and that would mean that where possible, side paths, separated bike lanes, crosswalks, various traffic calming would be appropriate. And then again, up at design level 3, high speed, high volumes of traffic, and basically the only design option here is just separating people out, rail trails, side paths, things like that. So, so what we did, I just have a couple examples of some design treatments that we're calling out. So for those design level 1 roads, again, it's unnecessary, impractical to physically segregate motor vehicles from bikes and pedestrians in these cases. Again, often this is your typical cul-de-sac or such, and in those cases nothing needs to be done. But when motor vehicle speed and volume start increasing and approach the upper level category, something like enhanced shoulders is a design option, and this is actually advocated by Federal Highways in their STAR guide, which is a small town and rural multimodal networks guide. For design level 2 roads, again, those are characterized by speeds between 30 and 50 miles per hour and higher volumes. This category of road is mixing of bikers and motor vehicles. It should be avoided, except of course at intersections, you're gonna need crosswalks, that type of thing. But ideally, if you have enough right of way, the roadway treatment for this type of road would be a side path. There are some cross sections on the left. Perhaps in an urban area where you don't have that right of way, you might, a cycle track like the one shown here is potentially an option. And then finally, this level 3 high-speed roads, the only option really is to separate people out. And then also folded into those design guidelines are just complete street policies, which are other ways of calming traffic, which most of us are familiar with. So this next section tries to take all of that information, those kind of design guidelines and those categories of roadways, and try to address improving our network. So this is a map we put together again of the region. In the background, the faded background is the complete road network, but overlaid on this is a proposed regional network that we developed, through talking to people and public engagement and so forth. And this kind of lays out a hierarchy. So there's regional corridors that, enable cyclists to travel north-south and east-west through the region. Potentially they're used for those longer commute trips, the somewhat longer commute trips between municipalities, or for long recreational rides type of thing. These regional connectors, they function as kind of for sub-regional travel. There are corridors that connect areas of high trip production, like neighborhoods and such, to desired destinations throughout the region. And then local connectors are generally located within municipalities, provide connections between these regional corridors. So, this hierarchy and just this network in general it's a generalized attempt to acknowledge where people are and where they want to go. It's noted that the character of the road segment, any particular road segment, is not defined by whether or not it's part of this regional network. It's any segment, regardless of its placement on this network, this proposed network, could potentially be suitable for any bike rider, any level. It also might only be suitable for the most skilled cyclists. So again, it's a kind of a generalized attempt at a regional network, and the goal is to encourage as much of this network to be level of traffic 2 or better, and try to start connecting it together as we kind of move along. This is a map that also attempts to kind of incorporate those design guidelines and the notion of designing for safety into the regional network. So what you see here is the regional network, but what we did is we went ahead and for each segment of the network, we categorized each segment of the road with the appropriate design level as best we could. So you can see, that, so it incorporates that network, and so these categories that we've assigned to the segments, they provide a general idea for the types of improvements, and it's basic. This is intended to provide guidance regarding improvements that could be made to the regional network based on the design categories of these segments. I don't know if I was really articulate about that, but in any event, what we also did was provide examples of planned and aspirational projects that could create a more usable and connected network. They're highlighted because they serve as examples of the types of projects that could be needed in many communities to address some of these gaps. So just a couple examples are Route 122, there's a proposal for a project out there. This is basically a 12.5-mile rural highway that passes between Amherst and Hollis. It's like many others in the region. It offers a vital corridor between a couple of communities. This is a design level 2 road, so it's medium speed, high volume, which means that we shouldn't be mixing motor vehicles and pedestrians. And so the proposed improvements are just side paths where possible, limiting speeds, reducing potential conflicts at intersections, maybe through roundabouts, that kind of thing. Defining multimodal space with color on shoulders, and then providing, distinguishing the open roadway from public spaces with gateways and that type of thing. Another potential project is Sauhegan Valley Rail Trail. This would provide a non-motorized alternative to Route 101A along the Hillsborough Branch Rail Line from downtown Nashua through Wilton, potentially to Lineborough. 101A is again a design level 2 road, and this would be potentially a really good way to avoid that roadway. So the proposed project is just develop a multi-use trail along that corridor. So that's really a few of those projects. In the interest of time, I don't think we need to go through any more of them. The next section is about how we use data And, so eventually we'll be in this chapter, we'll have, bike and just a discussion about our bike and ped counting, Strava data, level of traffic stress, how we can use census data and so forth. But for now, I'm just going to, note that, we have a bicycle and pedestrian counting program that's becoming more robust. We use both automatic machines and manual counts to gather project-specific and long-term bike and ped volumes. The data has been used to support grant applications, to inform planning studies in various communities, and so on. So we have a list of priority account locations. That's the map of those locations. And we establish that through public engagement and local knowledge and so forth. So that's all I'm going to say about this chapter on how we use data. You'll see more about that when we have a final draft. I'm also going to skip over recommendations and implementation because we're still working on that. Plan on having that by the end of the month. So regarding next steps, basically in the month of June, we're doing these presentations. We're going to complete the draft and an internal review of that document. Draft plan available for review in July and August, and adoption by NRPC Commission in September. So that's what I have on that. And any thoughts you have would be welcome. Oops. Hello, I think that's all closed out. So any thoughts on that? All right, so that brings us, it's about 1:27, and usually we go around to see what's going on with around the region. So any municipal updates? New Hampshire DOT, any updates? Hearing none. New Hampshire DES. Tim, any updates from you guys?
Yeah, just for a second, Matt, just to give a quick update on the State Clean Diesel program. We don't have any open grant opportunities at the present time. Generally what happens is we will have a new grant funding round that usually kicks in on or around October 1st, which is when we get authorization to use our, in this particular case, it'll be the fiscal year 2021 EPA funding. And just a couple of items about some recent awards. There was a governor and council meeting back in the end of April. There was a fishing fleet operating out of Hampton, New Hampshire. They received assistance for replacement of a marine engine. And a couple other awards, governor and council meetings on May 5th and June 2nd. At both of those meetings, First Student Incorporation received grants to assist with the replacement of, I think it's a total of 32 old diesel school buses. And it's my understanding that some of those buses are actually operating now in the city of Nashville. So that's just a couple of updates on the State Clean Diesel program. Thanks.
Thanks, Tim. Federal highways, any updates?
Nope, I don't have anything at the moment. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Lee. So if there isn't anything else, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Mark.
Thanks, Mark. Second. Thank you, John.
You're seconded.
Thanks. All right. next meeting is scheduled for July 14th. So unless you hear differently, we'll see you then. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Matt.
You're welcome. Thank you, Linda.